All right, so let's get started. So thank you all for being here this afternoon. Um, Karen is a relatively new member to the Greater Nashua Chamber. We're very glad to have her. And when we were brainstorming topic ideas during this time, certainly this is one that rose to the surface as being something important that we wanted to cover, to talk about. You know, I think many of us have been so busy in the doing, maybe we haven't necessarily stop to think about how we are doing as people and what we might be able to do. So I'm going to turn the screen over to Karen and let her take it from here.
Cool. Let me get my screen set up here. All right. Bear with me, guys. This is all new.
I think we've all developed great patience, especially with technology, right? We're all
so is that up? Can everybody see my cover slide?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Kate. Thanks for being here, everybody, in the absolute middle of the work week. Speaking of stress, all week I was like, okay, say the right word, Karen, say the right word, because I've had the song stuck in my head since we came up with this title. So we are going to talk about stress today. And since I'm new, I did want to tell you a little bit about myself and New England 360 Fitness. So like Kate mentioned, my name is Karen Koutsavlis. I survived my big fat Greek wedding. I'm the founder and chief motivating officer of New England 360 Fitness. It's been almost 7 years since I started my business, which is really hard to believe. And I've done everything since graduating with a degree in exercise science, everything from a collegiate strength and conditioning coach to personal training in Boston. I got into some clinical work, helping cardiovascular patients, people with diabetes, and then got into corporate wellness, which is where I really found my true passion for the industry. And I have also spent some time in the food industry, learning about our food supply and working with small family farms. And that has, this business has really become like a culmination of all my experiences and learning. And it continues to evolve and adapt, and I just love it. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell you guys about it and talk more a little bit about what I do with businesses and even individuals. So there are 4 key principles that I like to focus on when I'm working with people, and it's really comprehensive wellness. So it's not just fitness, it's not just nutrition. They're very important keys to any healthy lifestyle. For me, fitness is really all about proper movement patterns. So it's not just, trying to do the hardest workout you can day in and day out, but actually appreciating our body and the way it's meant to move and work towards your goals with efficiency and less risk of injury. And then same thing with nutrition is really a real food approach and creating a positive relationship with food. So it's not really, I don't like to focus on counting calories and macros and those sorts of things, but really identifying what foods you like and incorporating them into a healthy lifestyle. And then 2 other key components of the program, which I think kind of sets us apart, is really stress management, which is what we're going to talk more about today, and sleep and recovery. And I always focus on stress management with people as opposed to stress reduction, because we can't necessarily reduce stress in our lives, but we can always find ways to manage it better. And really the emphasis of my programs are practical solutions. So finding easy ways to incorporate healthy tips and really looking for long-term sustainable health and wellness. So it really came about to me when like I said, I worked outside of the fitness industry for a little bit. And when you're in it, it's really hard to understand how it's not easy for people to exercise and eat right. I used to work at the Federal Reserve Bank in Boston, where we had a gym on site, showers, locker rooms, a cafeteria with an awesome salad bar. And we had really good participation there, but it's still, to me, I couldn't believe that in a building that big, there was 10 to 16% participation in corporate wellness when it's right there. So it wasn't until I stepped away and learned that, wow, when you're not going to work in sweatpants and you have this stuff available to you, that you actually have to take the time to schedule this stuff into your lifestyle. And so that's really what I like to help people focus on, that it doesn't have to be a huge overhaul, but you can fit these things in and lead a healthier life and hopefully happier. So let's start talking about stress, which is not exactly an exciting topic because it is something that stresses people out. But no matter what your plan is and the way you think things are going to go, the reality is that there's always speed bumps or different hurdles that will pop up unexpectedly. And we also don't know what the magnitude or the intensity of those stress levels will be. So oftentimes we're caught off guard, and we're not always sure how to react to it. And hopefully some of the tools we talk about today will help you be a little bit more prepared. But it's also important to remember that people react to different stressors in different ways. One of the other pictures I was thinking to put up, but I couldn't find it, was actually me and my husband on a roller coaster. So some people will talk about good stress versus bad stress. Some people find things really exciting and exhilarating, and it's a good stress for them. Like my husband going down a roller coaster with his arms up, leaning forward, and then there's me tucked into a stranger's armpit and like, get me out of here. So it's important to remember as we talk about these things that we are all different, and that's okay. And certain things are going to trigger our stress reaction or response differently than others. So without getting too much into the science of stress and what it is, like I mentioned, there's good and bad stress. So looking at the chart on the right here, as your pressure levels increase, you can see some performance increases. And performance doesn't have to be like running a marathon. It can just be parenting or working or getting through your day. There are optimal levels of stress that actually motivate people and get you into where this green highlighted area is, which is called eustress. But as stress increases, you can get into an overloaded state, and that's where depression, fatigue, anxiety, all that can kick in and lead to burnout, which, as you see, results in a decrease in performance. So finding that balance of what stressors work for you and what pushes you over the limit is kind of step one to understanding how to manage your stress. And there's two other kinds of negative stress. So acute stress is going to be your sudden intense stress, which causes that fight or flight response from your body. It could be a shark attack, or some people say there's all of a sudden a tiger in front of you and that's how your body reacts. Or it could just be a car accident or something that really inhibits you from getting through your day. So that tends to be shorter, more intense stress. And chronic stress is what slowly builds up over time. So if it's stress from work or your commute, if you're stuck in traffic every day, that can all wear on you if you're not paying attention to it and managing it. And so that doesn't tend to be as intense, but the effects are longer lasting. So I just quickly wanted to put in a slide from my business presentation when I'm talking to corporations and businesses that are interested in beginning a corporate wellness program. Just the facts that it shows that most people are stressed at work, 83% of American employees. And it does cost businesses money because people are not as productive when they're stressed. There's employee turnover if they're unhappy at their job. And then there's also medical costs and a lot of different factors. But more importantly, what I think, hopefully we missed one, is the toll that it takes on your body. It's important to remember that our bodies are this magnificent system of other systems that all work together. And when one thing isn't working properly, it's going to affect another system. So stress will take a toll over time on the entire body. Your cardiovascular system As you know, when you're stressed, your heart rate rises, you can feel your heart beating more, your respiratory rate, you're breathing faster. It can even get into your muscles and joints. As you know, we kind of stiffen up a little bit. Over time, that can cause joint pain and inflammation and just make it really hard to move. Your endocrine system, so your hormones, hormonal imbalance over time. It can affect your GI tract, so your body doesn't have the ability to absorb the nutrients that it should be absorbing. It can cause constipation, diarrhea. I mean, it can even affect fertility. I say, you guys, instead of putting a picture there, I think you get the gist here. So it's, like I said, it's important to remember that each and every system within our body can be affected. And when one is affected, it's going to start this chain reaction. It doesn't matter who you are or how old you are. I was going to share a personal story of mine because, like I mentioned, I worked for another company a few years ago, and it was a stressful job. And I was younger, and I consider myself a healthy person, exercising, eating right most of the time. And yet I was traveling a lot and could feel the stress building up. So I started to work on some deep breathing, a little more yoga, which is not really my exercise of preference. And yet at night I would go to bed and it felt like my chest was going to explode. My heart was beating so hard. And it was embarrassing for me because I didn't say anything. Very typical in our world today. We don't put ourselves first. And I was guilty of that. I finally called the doctor, and sure enough, showed up and had high blood pressure. And in your 30s, you don't really want to hear that, especially when you're considered a healthy person. So we had to do some more tests just to make sure everything was okay structurally. And luckily everything was good, but each time I had to show up for a test, I had high blood pressure, and it really hit home to me. So I was lucky enough that I could leave that job because my doctor said, you've got to do something to manage the stress. That's not really why I left the job, but I was able to leave. And within a week of giving my notice, I thought I broke my rib. I learned my lesson. I went right back to the doctor, and lo and behold, my blood pressure was back to normal in 7 days. So as embarrassing as it is for me to share that story, because I'm a coach and I want to practice what I preach, I wasn't going to the doctor. If any of my clients had ever said, I was having this chest pain, I would have immediately stopped training them and said, until you know what's going on, you need to have this checked out. So I just want you to know that it doesn't matter your age, your physical activity level, how much you're eating. If you're not focusing on the stress, it can still do damage internally. So let's talk about some tools. And if you notice, I don't have quit your job listed here. So hopefully you like your job enough and there's no one's too stressed. But it is, these are some tips. There's a lot out there that can help. I feel like within an hour, we're just really going to be scraping the surface, but I hope that there's some things you can take and utilize yourself. So we'll go through these one by one together. And we'll start talking about mindfulness. And what this is for me, I'm sure you've heard the words lately, be mindful. And mindful is really just kind of a buzzword. But it's really important. It's paying attention. We tend to pay more attention to other people. We have social media, news, podcasts, but we're not paying attention to our own feelings. So it's important to take a look inside, pay attention to yourself. For once, put yourself first and understand, how am I feeling? Why am I stressed? What's triggering this? Triggers are really important. What is it that makes you feel stressed? Is it a person, a coworker, a family member, a friend? Is it certain situations? Does it stress you out? Right now, going to the grocery store is pretty stressful. It's different. We're not sure what's safe, what isn't. These current times are really different. So we might be facing some different triggers these days. It's important to make note of them. You can keep a stress journal. I'm not always big into pushing people into documenting everything, because I think sometimes that can actually add more stress to our lives. But I do think it's helpful, especially in the beginning when you're trying to figure some things out, and paying attention really gives you that, that data and the feedback that you need for yourself. And I also think that disconnecting is important to pay attention to yourself, because we can get distracted so easily these days with our tablets, our phones. We're constantly getting bombarded with ads and stories and other people's feelings. So trying to disconnect and set boundaries for yourself so that you can still go on social media and stay connected to people, especially in this time, but set yourself up with some realistic boundaries. The problem with paying so much attention to other people is it can affect our perception. So I don't know if you've heard the quote that we're constantly comparing our backstage to everybody else's highlight reel. So as you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, we see these great stories, and it's good, because I do think we need to share positivity, but sometimes if we're feeling stressed, it can also make us compare ourselves to others. And there's a quote I wanted to read from someone named Jim Quick, who I think is great. I like to follow his advice. And the quote is, "The grass is greener where you water it. Some people's grass looks greener because of the filter they're using on Instagram. There's also a lot of artificial turf out there. Envy is the thief of joy. It rarely solves anything. It builds nothing, but it can destroy everything. Do the best you can with what you have on your own timeline." And when I saw that, it really resonated with me, because our perception isn't always what reality is. And then that offsets our expectations. And especially in a time like we're going through now, our expectations should not be perfection. In fact, I don't always say you should be shooting for perfection, but consistent practice and positivity and patience. So with that said, I do want to share a couple exercises as we go through some of these things. And these are meant to be done on your own. I'm going to read them. I don't normally read from a script when I'm doing a presentation, but for what these exercises are, I think it's important. And I can either send them out, or if you guys have questions and there's one that you really like and you'd like to focus on for yourself, I'm happy to send it out. So the first one, to help you with attention, I call it first timer. And this is not something that you necessarily do when you're stressed. But basically, the next time you find yourself waiting in line or feeling the urge to quickly check your phone, like at the grocery store or at the bank, look around as if it's your first time ever there. Be curious about everything that's around you. Ask yourself questions about the things and the people you see. This will give your brain a rest. It allows you to experience the world around you at peace and in the present. And so that's it. These are really simple exercises and things that the more that you read them and the more you practice them or try them yourself, you don't necessarily have to read them word for word, but it creates that muscle and brain memory so that when you do need that break, it's easier for you to disconnect, pay attention to yourself, and really be in the present. The second one is good to practice before you get into a stressful situation. And this one's called space travel. This is one of my favorites. So what you do is close your eyes and imagine you have the power to travel through space. You begin rising up from where you are and seeing the world below from above. You can see the city, the country, or the Earth's limits. Rise up until you feel comfortable and stay in that position for 5 to 10 minutes. Look at where you were before. How does it look from up there? And how do you feel? From a distance, things and situations begin to look smaller. This reduces negative reaction and gives you a different perspective. So the other thing that I like with that one is if you're picturing yourself up there, you can almost have a feeling of floating within yourself. You can create that within your own mindset, and you have that weightless feeling, which is the complete opposite of stress. When we feel like there's so much pressure, we can hardly take a deep breath. So it just kind of lightens the mood, lightens the area where you are, and gives you that different perspective. And the last one is watch a movie. So this is when you close your eyes and move a stressful situation to the big screen. Sit back and watch the movie with you as the star. What do you see and how does it make you feel? Stepping back and watching gives you neutral ground to observe the situation and provide a different perspective to yourself. So those are 3 exercises. Like I said, there's a lot out there in terms of working on mindfulness. But those are 3 of my favorites. So if one of those resonates with you, I hope that it's something that can help. And that leads next into breathing. And sometimes when we're stressed or we feel overwhelmed, people say, just breathe, just take a deep breath, take a chill pill. Well, that's easier said than done, especially when you're in the situation. But breathing is obviously important, yet so many of us take it for granted because our body just naturally does it. And unfortunately, the more stress we get, especially in acute situations where it's intense, our breathing rate rises. So we take short, quick breaths, our shoulders hunch over, and we're not bringing in all the oxygen that helps all of those bodily functions we talked about function properly. So you want to practice taking deep breaths and allowing air all the way in, using your diaphragm and into your belly. Now, I did not put the word meditate or meditation on here because I feel like it's synonymous with kale to a lot of people. It's like, okay, this is super healthy and I know I should do it, but it seems a little extreme. So it's not for everyone. If it works for you, then that's great. But the key point of meditation is it's helping you take the deep breaths and incorporate all of your senses. So I know I said to disconnect, but there are tools out there online that can be helpful, apps like Calm, and there's another one I can't think of right now, but even some YouTube channels where, it just helps you give you that visualization and focus on all your senses. So when you stop to breathe and practice breathing, let the air come all the way in, let your belly fill up, not just your chest, and exhale completely. Some of the exercises out there that I've seen are called like box breathing, and there's some other funky names for them where you take a deep breath in and then you hold it and then you exhale even longer. And I think when you're just starting out, that's a little much because the last thing we want to do is hold our breath and keep everything tense. So that could be a good goal for down the road, but if you're just starting to work on your stress management, focus on the in and the out and just keep it smooth. I have pictures here because the next exercises we're going to do are exercises just to help you breathe. And again, I think it's really important to practice these on your own. It doesn't have to be long, but you want to be able to completely immerse yourself into whatever place it is you're thinking. And like I said, everybody reacts to stress differently. Everybody also has places that make them feel calm and joy that are different from one another. So I've got like a beach here, which wouldn't be bad to be at today. Also sitting by a fireplace and maybe just floating underwater. So one of the exercises you can do is take a trip. You can close your eyes. You can actually grab a picture of your favorite place. Use one of these if you wanted. But think of anywhere that brings you joy and calmness. Look around and use all your senses to see, feel, smell, hear, taste the details of this place. Be present with your senses and your body will react as if you were actually there. So really trying to incorporate all the senses takes your mind off of a stressful situation. Now again, this takes practice. Sometimes when I do this exercise in classes with people, I ask them to just pick their place. That's their place that they've got. And then think about 3 things that they see, 3 things that they hear, 3 things that they feel. And then from there, once you do that, then you pick 2 things that you see, 2 things that you hear, 2 things that you feel, down to 1. And it's really short, but it gives you that quick little vacation that you might need from whatever stressful situation you're in. And another one, I just call breathing power. So this one, you're going to just close your eyes and focus on breathing. As you breathe, focus on breathing smoothly in and out. Pretend that you can see the space between your eyes And then visualize a bright color or sort of like a laser beam full of power shining in that space with every inhale. It can be any color you want. Watch the light get brighter and stronger with each breath in. This light represents the power within you. Each breath charges you and relaxes your mind and body. So that's another really simple exercise that you can do. You can practice these anywhere. I wouldn't suggest closing your eyes if you're stressed out on the highway because of traffic. But practicing them when you're at home does help you when you're in these situations. And it gives you a little more confidence when it comes to that too. So be sure to include all your senses. And also, just lastly, nature. Getting out into nature is naturally going to slow your body's breathing, your heart rate, and pay attention, like we said before, pay attention, look around, and see what's around you. You might notice some things on a trail or a road that you've been on many times that you haven't noticed before. And it's great to just give your mind that short little break. And one thing that I've started is, and we can do this one together, hopefully it'll work, it's called the timeout chair. And I don't know if this just became more apparent to me since having children, but I think there's a lot of negative focus. When our kids get stressed or they have temper tantrums, what happens? They get a timeout. I know I had plenty of them when I was younger. And we really, unfortunately, have this little ingrained thing in our head that stressing out is bad or having a temper tantrum is bad. As adults, obviously, we don't want to have a temper tantrum, but we also need to feel the permission to take that break and know that it's okay. I relate it even to fitness and exercise, right? Like when we're younger, we go to practice or we play a game and you miss a shot and you've got to do push-ups, or you're late, you've got to run. So we have this negative association with, with exercise and these timeouts. So incorporating a timeout chair, I've recently suggested to some corporate clients where people can go, be non-judgmental, no criticism, and just take the break that they need. And if you have trouble getting into that mindset or picturing the place where you feel joy and calmness, it's okay, because whenever anybody tries to do this stuff, it's natural for our thoughts to just flood right back in. Oh, well, when this is done, I have to go to the grocery store, and then I have to pick up this, and I have all these errands and deadlines. So using tools that will help you with some guided breathing or guided, meditation. I'm going to try and bring this up for you guys. Of course, now it won't work. Bear with me for 1 second. And hopefully it will come up here. All right, so this is the timeout chair. So I encourage you to just sit back and relax for 1 minute. That's that. Oh, now I lost this. Sorry. Does everybody feel more relaxed now? All right, let me get back into this. And present. So I also want to remind you that you can have a chair like that at your home as well. Allow yourself and give yourself the permission to take these breaks because it's much needed. And I see so many people judging the quality of their day based on how much they did and what they accomplished, not the quality of what they got done. So try to take yourself away from that and focus on yourself and include this in part of what you accomplish each day. It's really important. Now, movement is also another great way to work off some stress. You can walk, you can do yoga, you can strength train, you can dance, whatever it is. I think the key is that it should be something fun and something you enjoy. If it's something that you don't enjoy, then hopefully it's with people you really love being with. I think that's the beauty of like running groups and walking groups is not everybody loves to run, but you see these communities built because people are active and they're moving together. And being active is one of the best ways to really kind of re-energize yourself, clear your head. The important thing that I want to note though is working off stress by overexerting yourself at the gym can also be counterproductive. So just be careful, because I've had some people that say, oh, this is great. You know, my boss really stressed me out today and my Fitbit said I got a 4-hour workout in. Well, guess what? That's actually 4 hours of stress on top of what you were already doing. So it's really important that, again, I keep saying it, you pay attention to how you're feeling and also make sure that you're allowing your body to sleep and recover and rest. And that is also one of the best ways to fight off stress. We as a nation, I believe, I can't remember the numbers, but most people do not get the sleep that their body needs. And again, just like anything else, every person is different and needs different amounts of rest. But I think that with sleep, one of the most important things to help yourself get good quality sleep is to stick to a regular sleeping schedule. So your sleep efficiency, you're going to bed and waking up at relatively the same time, give or take, every night and then every morning. It's important to get off our screens beforehand. This is a great time to practice some of your breathing. And if the breathing exercises are hard for you, just going to bed 10 minutes earlier and getting that extra amount of rest is naturally going to help your body relax. So it's one way to help you ease into this. And prepare. So I love this quote, execution trumps knowledge every day of the week. We all know what we should do. We know we should exercise. We know we should eat right. We know we should get the recommended amount of sleep. We know. We should be investing. We should be spending more time. But all that really is potential. Until you're actually putting into practice, then you're not necessarily going to take that next step. And the last thing you want when you're in a stressful situation is to say, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to think of my favorite place, the place that brings me calm. I can't think of any place. Oh my God, I don't have a calm place. And it just kind of keeps the ball rolling in terms of how stressed we are. So it's important to carve out some time for you each and every day, or whatever works for you, even if you're starting to work on stress management just once a week. And give yourself that time so that you can be prepared the next time a stressful situation hits. Because remember, we don't know when we're going to be stressed again or how stressed we are. Unfortunately, that's the way that it works. So an exercise that I wanted to do to help prepare so that we don't get into that situation, if you have paper and a pen, just take a moment right now to try and think about a few situations that you've had that have made you feel stressed, or times that you know that you're maybe not on your A game because you are a little overwhelmed. I will say for me, like I've noticed when I'm tired, if I don't get that good night's sleep, my next day's performance is a true indication of how I slept that night. So write down some of the things. Is it a place Is it a certain work project? Maybe there's an annual project. It doesn't even have to be a weekly thing. But just try and think about some of the triggers that you have so that you can pay more attention as we go throughout our days and our weeks. And I'll just give you like a minute to do that. Awesome. Is that good? Do we have a couple triggers? Okay. So I always like to focus on the positives. So now if you can write down some of the places or people that also bring you joy and comfort, you can keep those on the same sheet of paper or start a new one if you want. And these are things that you can, this is a list you can build upon and adapt as life changes. It can evolve with you. You can start a whole new list if you need to next week, each month. It's totally up to you. So take a moment to write down those positive parts of your life that can calm you down. Awesome. Cool. So keep that handy so that the next time a stressful situation does come, you're already one step ahead of the game. Or when you're like, hey, I think I'm going to practice some of these breathing techniques or just try and slow down a bit, you already have the base work there of thinking and understanding, okay, where am I going to send myself to? Or, what place am I going to be in? And it is important to always focus on the positive as well. So that preparation will hopefully help. And I think it's also important to remember that you don't have to go it alone. Even if you think that you are in the middle of the desert with no one else around you, hopefully some of the tools we discussed today are things that will help you when times do get stressful. This is a picture from a bike ride that I finally did last year. It was on my bucket list for about 6 years. I finally made the decision to fly out to Idaho with my bike and ride this awesome race. And the funny thing is I had all these tools with me in case I got a flat tire. I had food with me to keep me going. I didn't know how to use any of the tools that were with me. In fact, I also packed $10 in case I had to pay someone to help me use the tools or if I needed a ride. Not that $10 would have gotten me from where this picture was back to civilization. But oddly enough, about 3/4 of the way through the race, I started to hear a jingling and I thought my bike was broken. And finally I pulled over and what happened was my bike pack had actually opened and I lost all my tools and the $10. But the interesting thing about it is this guy pulled over and we had been kind of riding together a little bit and he was like, don't worry about it. If something happens, there's enough people out here that will help you get through it, will help you get back. And I think even when you think you're in the middle of the desert, know that there are other people out there doing the same thing, feeling the same way, stressed maybe by different things than you, but there is a community out there and sharing what you have to give and also asking others when you need support is really important. It's not one of the easiest things to do, but just remind yourself that there are people out there and there is help out there. So hopefully with the tools that you have, the community we have, this was helpful. I feel like I've been talking an awful lot, but I wanted to thank you guys for being here and definitely open it up for questions. I am offering right now, I say to disconnect, But I do have a software that I have all these workouts and exercises and even some nutrition information loaded into. And as a result of all this, I've just been allowing people to access stuff at no charge. So if you're looking for some fun ways to move, you want to try some new programs and exercises, let me know. I'm happy to give you guys access. Anyone in the chamber, really. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful for you guys.
Anyone have questions? I feel like with such a small group, it's a great time to ask really personal, specific, I mean, not personal, but, you know, like one-off kinds of questions. Anyone have things?
Everybody's nice and relaxed.
I know, I really enjoyed the timeout chair. That was nice.
Yay, good. Good, I'll send you the link so you can use it whenever.
When I have a couple apps, just you were talking about meditation and such, so I have Headspace and one called Insight Timer. And I used them a couple of times when this first started and, you know, my mind was racing and things were super stressful. They have bedtime stories. So they have meditations, but they also have people read stories. And I couldn't tell you what they're about because, of course, I fell asleep, which is kind of the point. You can choose, I don't remember between the two of them, but you can choose the voice that things are read in. So whether it's a male or a female. There are, you know, both of them have paywalls at some point, right? There are some things that are free and some things you have to pay for. Some of them, I mean, they do have, that's when I find, even through, so I teach yoga on the side for those that don't know, and through my yoga teacher training, we were supposed to be meditating on a daily basis, and it's just a hard thing for me to commit to. But I find that just before bed, like it sort of is dual purpose, right? It gets me to do a little bit of meditation or focus on my breath or focus on relaxing, whatever it is, but it also in turn helps me sleep better. So you had mentioned a couple of apps, so those are good ones too.
Yeah, I think Headspace is the one I was thinking of that I was like, I know the name of it, but yeah. And I think those are helpful because I think also like during the day, like at night, it's great because you can drift off into sleep. But at night to tell people, or during the day to tell people, take a breather for 3 minutes, there are people who are afraid they're going to fall asleep because they know they're so tired. Right. So I encourage people to use your stopwatch on your phone and set a timer so that if that does happen, that's great. That means your body needs it. And you can give it that rest and that break without, you know, sleeping on the job.
I always think it's interesting how long a minute feels when you have a timer set and step away.
Excellent.
As you're going through the day, it's just like hours have gone by and I haven't, you know, stopped to check in with myself. But when you do take a minute, it's like, wow, there's a lot in a minute.
Yeah, it's true. Any of my on-site classes that I teach, we usually finish with 1 minute of just breathing. And it's funny, I do have, I have one person that falls asleep every time. And then I can see other people like tapping their fingers on the floor as they're laying there. Like, is it almost over yet? I have so much, I can tell their brain is like, I have so much to do. I'm like, thank you for taking the minute. As hard as it was, I can see, you know? So yeah, it is crazy. It seems so long.
Well, thank you, Karen. This was awesome. And thank you for making all of your tools available to folks. I'm definitely going to have to check it out. I've never seen what you do.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Go get some sunshine. Go stand in the sun for a few minutes.
Yes.
Bye. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.